Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam review class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नितिनामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam review class. So we are discussing from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and yesterday we completed the discussion and conversation which happened between Narad Muni and Yudhishthir regarding appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev. And at the end of the 10th chapter, we discussed how Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was feeling so very sad that Prahlad was so very fortunate because Supreme Lord came for him, but I am not so fortunate. And then Narad Muni, he told, actually, you are even more fortunate than Narada. You are more fortunate than me. You are more fortunate than all the sages. You are more fortunate than any living entity in the world. Because Yesham Grihan Avasatiti Sakshat Gudham Param Brahma Manushyalingam. Supreme Personality is residing in your house. That's why all the sages, they come to your place. And then Yudhishthir Maharaj had a doubt that how Supreme Lord, he is so very merciful that he agreed to come and stay in my house. So how is it possible? So Narad Muni tells, actually, nobody can understand Supreme Lord. Nobody can tell you why Lord is behaving like this. Even Brahma cannot understand. Even Lord Shiva cannot understand. And when Yudhishthir Maharaj, he hears this, that Lord Shiva also cannot understand. How is this possible? Lord Shiva is Supreme Lord. He is the most powerful Devta. He could understand. I think he should understand. So to clarify this confusion of Yudhishthir Maharaj, Narad Muni describes ancient history of a battle between Lord Shiva and Tripurasura, and how Lord Krishna, he equipped Lord Shiva ultimately with all the paraphernalia, chariot, charioteer, flag, horses, elephants, and everything. And because of the mercy of Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva was able to destroy the three demons. And that was the wonderful pastime of Mayadana and Tripurasura. So then after describing this, we'll be beginning the 11th chapter. So in the 11th chapter, after Prahlad's glorious character was described by Narad Muni and King Yudhishthir, he heard everything. So now King Yudhishthir, he thought that, okay, all this pure devotional service is not so easy, but what about the general mass? How they will, perfect their lives? So in response to this question, in response to this thought, Yudhishthir Maharaj asks question to Narad Muni. He says, Bhagavan Shrotum Ichchami Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam Varnashrama Acharayutam Yat Paman Vindate Param. He says, oh Narad Muni, please, I want to hear about two topics, the Sanatana Dharma and Varnashram Dharma. So what is the eternal religion of all the living entities, and what are the social and spiritual duties of the living entities? So that's what I want to hear. And then he says, "O Narad Muni, because of your austerities and because of your devotion, because you are so very perfect in knowledge and yoga, you are the best son of Brahma. So therefore, you are qualified to speak this knowledge to me. So please describe about the Varnashram Dharma and the Sanatan Dharma for all the living entities." So when Narad Muni was inquired in this way, he offered his respects to Supreme Lord, and he started explaining the purpose of life which general people should follow, should have, and how they can also perfect their lives slowly. So he described that, first I'll give an example. I'll explain the principles of this Sanatan Dharma, which I have heard directly from Lord Narayan. And then he says that, Lord Narayan, he appeared in the world along with Nara. So Nara Narayan Rishi. So they appeared through Murti and Dharma, and they explained me all these principles of Sanatan Dharma and Varnashram Dharma. So that's what I'll explain to you. Yo tirimano amshena dakshayanam tu dharmatah lokanam swastaye dhihaste tapo badarikashrame. So he says that, Narayan Rishi, they performed severe penances at the Badarik ashram so that they can show the world by their personal example how to live in the world and perfect their lives. And then he says, one can get complete satisfaction in life only by the process of devotional service. Dharma moolam hi bhagavan sarvadeva mayo hari smritam chadad vidam rajan yena cha atma suprasidati. Dharma moolam hi bhagavan. Supreme Lord is the root of all the religious principles. Sarva Veda Mayo Hari. Lord Hari is the essence of all the scriptures. Smritam Chatat Vidam Rajan. On the basis of all these religious principles, which are explained by the Supreme Lord, one can become completely satisfied. Yena cha atma suprasidati. So similar verse was also spoken in the first canto, that Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So the almost similar verse is spoken here again by Narad Muni, that the supreme occupation for all the living entities, Savai pumsam paro dharma, supreme religious occupation for all the living entities, yato bhaktir adhokshaje. That is the devotion unto the Supreme Lord, Adhokshaja. Ahetuki, apratihata. And that devotion should be without any hindrance, without any obstruction, and without any motivation. Then yayatma suprasidati. That is a secret thing. That is a secret about being a satisfied person in life. When one renders unmotivated and unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Lord without asking anything in return, then spontaneously Krishna satisfies the heart of the devotee. The devotee does not hanker anything, of this world if he renders devotional service unto Supreme Lord, because he completely roots out. Supreme Lord completely removes all the desire for material sense enjoyment from the heart of a devotee, and therefore, Narad Muni is saying, Dharma moolam hi Bhagavan. Supreme Lord is the root of all the occupational duties. And then, in next 4 verses, he describes the 30 qualities of 30 qualities which are required to satisfy the Lord. And so many wonderful qualities, starting with Satyam, Daya, Tapa, Shaucham, Titiksha, Iksha, Damosham, and all the wonderful qualities are described. And then the 11th verse describes Shravanam Kirtanam Chasya Smaranam Mahatam Gatehe Sevejyavayantarlasyam Sakhyam Atma Samarpanam. So, this is almost similar verse which Prahlad Maharaj he spoke to Hiranyakashipu when Hiranyakashipu asked, "What have you learned from your teachers?" So almost similar verse Narad Muni is speaking that these are the principles of devotional service. This is the Sanatana Dharma of a living entity. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atmanivedanam. So Prabhupada writes that a human being must be trained in all the above mentioned 30 qualities. Otherwise, he is not a human being. So if somebody is not practicing this process of Krishna consciousness or spiritual life, actually he is not a human being. Ko nama tripyet rasavit kathayam mahattamekanta parayanasya nantam gunanam agunasya jagmo yogeshwaraye bhavapadma mukhyaha. Who can give up hearing the pastimes of Krishna? Unless somebody is animal, aho virajyet vina naretaram. Unless somebody is an animal, he will not give up the process of bhakti. Only an animalistic person who is deeply rooted in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, he can only give up Krishna. He can only give up devotional service. So that is the thing which Narad Muni explains about Sanatan Dharma. And then after describing this, Narad Muni explains, he answers the question of Varnashram Dharma. So he describes about the occupational duties of 4 Varnas in 13 to 16 verses. He says that the Dvijas or the Brahmanas, they are, who is a Dvija? Dvija means one who has performed the various types of samskaras or the purificatory ceremonies. So Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, they are supposed to undergo all the purificatory ceremonies so that they become purified, their birth becomes purified. As it is said, Janmana jayate shudra samskarat bhaved dvija, ved pathat bhaved vipro brahma janati iti brahmana. When somebody takes birth, everybody is a Shudra by birth. Janmana jayate Shudra. Because Shudra means he does not have any spiritual conception. He is just absorbed in the body. Samskarat bhaved dvija. And then he undergoes so many various types of purificatory ceremonies. Then he is called as Dvija, twice born. Ved pathat bhaved vipro. And then when he studies the Vedas, he becomes a Vipra. Brahma janati iti brahmana. One who knows the supreme Brahman, he is called a Brahmana. So Prabhupada writes in the purport there that in the Varnashram Dharma, the various types of samskaras, they are very, very important. Starting from Garbhadhan Sanskar. Even before, conceiving a child, one has to undergo so many different types of purificatory processes so that the mind becomes completely purified. And when they unite, when the husband and wife, they unite, they attract a pious, a devotee soul. So that is the purpose. And therefore Prabhupada writes, if these things are not followed in the human society, then the result will be, it will create Varna Sankara. Just like in Arjuna, in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks so many things. He says, I don't want to kill my family, all these people who have come to fight, because if I'll kill all of them, women will become unprotected. They'll be exploited by unscrupulous people. And then Varna Sankara will be born. Sankaro naraka eva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitro hiesham lupta pindo dakakriya. So he says that, if Varna Sankara will be born, then nobody will follow, nobody will offer pindadan to the ancestors, and they will fall down. So therefore, Prabhupada writes that everybody should follow all these purificatory ceremonies so that they can make their life successful and they can beget a devoted Krishna conscious child. And then Narad Muni describes the occupational duties of a Brahmana. The Brahmana should worship Krishna, teach others how to worship Krishna, do yajna, teach others how to do yajna, accept charity and give charity. Patan pathan yajana yajana dana pratigraha. So Prabhupada writes there, and then Narad Muni also talks about Kshatriya. He says Kshatriyas, they should never accept charity. They may perform all the other 5 duties of a Brahmana. Pathan, Pathan, Yajan, Yajan and Dan. But they should never do pratigraha. Kshatriyas can never accept charity because that is not their nature. That is what Krishna told to Arjuna, that you are thinking you will go to forest and you will do begging, but you will not be able to do so because that is not your dharma. Therefore, that is not your nature. Therefore, Kshatriya, they are allowed to levy taxes. They are allowed to rule people. And Prabhupada writes there that of these 6 types of occupational duties, 3 are compulsory for Brahmanas. Studying, study of the Vedas, worship of the deities, and giving charity. So these are compulsory duties. And then Prabhupada writes that Shastras, they especially stress that if one claims to be a Brahmana, he cannot engage in service of anyone else, And you can calculate around, according to this standard, who is a Brahmana in this Kali Yuga. A Brahmana never engages in service of anyone. He does not work to get money. Prabhupada would say many times, Chanakya was the last Brahmana who existed in Kali Yuga. Because Chanakya, he never took salary for whatever advice he gave to uh, uh, Ashoka or Vikramaditya. So that's why, Brahmanas, we meet many people say we are also Brahmana, we have also Brahman thread, but that is not a Brahmana. One does not become a Brahmana by wearing a 25 paisa wala thread. Brahmana means Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. So Brahmana never engages in service of anyone else. Otherwise, he at once falls from his position. He falls and he becomes a Shudra. And then Prabhupada gives example of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami also. Although they were born in a very, very high class Brahmana family, Gaur Saraswata Brahmana, but because they were serving Nawab Hussain Shah, they were also ostracized. They were also ostracized from the Brahminical community. And therefore, Prabhupada writes that Kshatriyas, although they are as qualified as Brahmanas, but they should never accept charity. And then he describes about the services, duties of a Vaishya. Who is a Vaishya? Vaishya should follow the directions of the Brahmanas. And then, as Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of a Vaishya, he should do agriculture and he should take care of the cows. And Shudras, they should accept all the service of all the higher orders of society. And then he says, a Brahmana in a difficult situation, he can do some other alternative duties also. What are the alternative duties of a Brahmana? He says first is lowest category is Varta. Varta means that is a Vaishya duty of agriculture. Brahmana can do agriculture. And then he says Shalina. Shalina means depending on what is received without begging. So first is doing agriculture. Second is begging. Third is Yayavara. He says, begging in the paddy field. And fourth is the highest is Shilonchanam. Shilonchanam means this Brahmana, he goes to the paddy field, and after the grains are collected, few grains are, remaining in the paddy field. So this Brahmana, he collects that and he takes it and cooks it and eats. So these are the alternative duties a Brahmana can do. So Prabhupada writes there, a Brahmana is offered sometimes land and a cow. And in charity, he is offered all this. And so Brahmana may act as a Vaishya, but he cannot act as a Kshatriya, So then Narad Muni describes the emergency duties of these 4 Varnas and 4 Varnas. He says in emergency situation, a lower person should not accept the occupational duty of a higher person. A Brahmana, a Kshatriya should never accept the duty of a Brahmana. Although a Brahmana can accept a duty of a Kshatriya in emergency situation, but lower person should not accept the duty of a higher order. And then he says actually Kshatriya, they may accept the means of Vaishyas, but they should never accept charity. And then he says, in emergency, one may accept the following occupations. He says one can collect grains from the field, then one can collect without begging, then begging grains, then tilling the ground, and then trade. So all these things can be done by a Brahmana. And then he says, but actually one should not accept the profession of dog. That is Shwavritti. What is the Shwavritti? That means to serve a low grade person like Shudras. One should never serve a low grade person. So that is what he describes. And then he says, he describes the symptoms of various types of uh, varnas. He describes the symptoms of Brahmana, which are very similar to what is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Shamodama tapashaucham shantosha shantirarjavam jnanam dayachyuta atmavatvam satyam cha brahma lakshanam. Brahmana should have mind control, sense control, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, and complete surrender to Krishna. What is the symptom of a Kshatriya? Shauryam, Viryam, Dhriti, Teja, Tyagas, Jadav, Shama, Brahmanyata, Prasadascha, Satyam, Ta, Shatra, Lakshanam. So what is the symptom of a Kshatriya? He should have a bravery in battle, and he should have patience, and he should have a challenging attitude. He should be charitable. He should be faithful to following all the regulative principles, all the Brahmanical principles. He should be truthful. And then he describes the symptoms of a Vaishya. The symptoms of a Vaishya is they are devoted to the demigods. Deva, Guru, Achyute, Bhakti. They are devoted to demigods, spiritual master, and Lord Vishnu. Trivarga Pariposhanam. And very important duty of Vaishya does is he takes care of Dharma, Artha, Kama. For the advancement in spiritual life, he takes care of Dharma, Artha, Kama properly. Astikyam Udyamo Nityam. And he believes the words of the scriptures and the spiritual master. Naipunyam Vaishya Lakshanam. These are the qualities of Vaishyas. They are very expert in earning money. What is the symptom of a Shudra? The symptom of a Shudra is he is subordinate to all the upper three castes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. Seva Swaminya Ananyaya. Amayaya. Amaya means they serve the master without duplicity. And therefore, they may also do yagyas, but they don't know the mantras properly. They don't steal, So Prabhupada writes in the purport there that a first class servant is one who does not steal. So the first class Shudra should be very clean. Shaucham, he should be very clean. He must not steal. He must not speak lies. He should always render service to the Brahmanas. And then Narad Muni describes the duties of a chaste wife. He says that a chaste wife should serve the husband with love and affection according to the time and place and circumstances. She should be very favorably disposed towards the servant. He should follow the vows of the husband. She should keep the house pure and clean, and she should be modest, control her senses, speak in a very pleasing way. She should not be greedy for mundane things. She should not be so much attracted by the worldly affairs which are happening in the outside world. And at the same time, she should know the principles of religion very nicely. And Prabhupada writes that the basic principle a chaste wife should follow is, if she is very favorably disposed towards her husband, and when there is no fight between husband and wife, then it is very, very conducive for spiritual advancement. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur would say that, grihete goloka bhai. Whenever I come and I see my family completely devoted in Krishna consciousness, I think my home is like a goloka. It is not different. And then Narad Muni says, what is the result of a chaste wife when she serves in such a wonderful way? She takes care of the family. She serves her husband properly, following the footsteps of Lakshmi Devi. she goes back home, back to Godhead, along with her devotee husband. So Prabhupada clarifies here, a fallen husband who is addicted to eating, who is addicted to meat eating, intoxication, gambling, and illicit affairs, one should not associate, the wife should not associate with this type of husband. Just like we hear the story of Nag Patnis in the Kaliya. Although Nag Patnis were devotees, but they were not taking association of Kaliya. They were hearing about Krishna from devotees of Lord. So therefore, Prabhupada writes here, if the husband is fallen, the wife should not take association of the husband very closely. And therefore, similarly, husband should not take association of the wife very intimately if she is not a devotee. So the conclusion, Prabhupada writes that a husband should be a pure Vaishnava and a woman should be a chaste wife. Then both will be very happily progressing in their spiritual consciousness. And then after describing about the duties of the chaste wife and husband, he describes about the mixed castes. There are some mixed classes. What are the duties of those mixed classes? So Prabhupada writes that, what are these mixed classes? So if a woman, she marries the husband of a higher caste, just like if a woman is a Kshatriya, and she marries a Brahmana husband, that is called pratilom marriage. That is called anulom marriage. That is relatively better. A wife should be of the lower caste and husband should be of the higher caste. Generally, they should be of the same caste, ideally. But if that is not the situation, better is the woman should be from the lower varna. She should be, if husband is Brahmana, she should be Kshatriya. Then it is called anulom marriage. But if it happens other way around, if the wife is Brahmani and a husband is a Kshatriya, that is called pratilom marriage. That is not generally recommended. So then Narad Muni describes the duties of all these mixed castes, and he says that even Chandalas, they are called Antavasai. They are not thieves. They are not sinful in their conduct. They are living life according to the principles of religion. And they, as per their nature, everybody should engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. And ultimately, what will be the result of living a life of proper varna? So in 32nd verse, he says that one will gradually attain the stage of nishkama. Nishkama means one will not have any personal sense gratificatory desires, and his life will be progressive towards spiritual realization. And then he says, actually, some people, they also recommend that if somebody is so very intoxicated in sense gratification, one's way to destroy all the sense gratificatory desires is to overindulge in all these desires. And Prabhupada clarifies that this point, that those who are too sinful and they are born in the lower classes, they are allowed to enjoy in such a way. Other people should not overindulge in sense desires, sense gratification. And Chakravarti Thakur gives the example of Yayati Maharaj and Saubhari Muni. Yayati Maharaj, after enjoying for a long, long time, he ultimately realized that he had wasted his life. Similarly, Pururava, after enjoying for a long, long time with Urvashi, he realized that he had wasted his time. Saubhari Muni also, after enjoying with the 50 daughters of Mandhata, he realized that I have wasted my life in all these sense gratification. He gave up all that. He became a devotee. And therefore, in the end, Narad Muni describes that, Varna, they are not based on birth. They are based on qualities. Yasya lakshanam proktam pumso varna bhivanjakam Yadanyatrapi drishyeta tattenaiva vinirdishet. So, if one shows a symptom of a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Shudra, as described above, he says, even if somebody is born in a different caste, if somebody is born in a Kshatriya family, but he is showing the symptoms of a Brahmana, then he should follow the Brahminical culture. He can follow the principles of Brahminical culture. If a Brahmana is showing the symptoms of a Kshatriya, then he should follow the symptoms of principles of Kshatriya order. So therefore, that is how a Varna is based on qualities. As Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Nobody becomes Brahmana or Kshatriya by birth. One should have qualities of it. And then in the 12th chapter, Narad Muni describes the 4 spiritual classes. There are 4 social orders which are meant to live in this world properly according to one's nature. They are called Varna. That is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. And there are 4 spiritual orders which are meant for advancing vertically. So how one can gradually develop their consciousness to the pure level. So that is called a spiritual order. That is called Brahmana, Kshatriya, that is Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. So in this 12th chapter, Narad Muni describes the qualities of these 4 spiritual orders. And then he describes that, first he describes the duties of a Brahmachari. Brahmachari Guru Kule Vasandanta Guror Hitam Acharandasvannicho Gurao Saurida Surida. So Srila Prabhupada would quote this verse many times. What is the ideal disciple? Brahmachari Gurukule. He should stay while living in a Gurukul Danta. He should be sense controlled. Guror Hitam. He should work for the welfare of the spiritual master. Acharan Dasvat. He should become a humble menial servant of the spiritual master. Gurau Sudridha Sauritaha. He is a perfect disciple who is always thinking about the welfare of the spiritual master. And then what other things he does? Sayam pratar upasita guru agni arka surottaman sandhe ubhe cha yatvaka japan brahma samahitah. So he worships Guru, Fire God, Sun God and Lord Vishnu early in the morning and in the evening time. He is fully controlled in his speech. He is silent, does not do any prajalpa. He is doing his Gayatri regularly. And then, whenever Guru calls him, he studies under the Guru and learns everything. Daily, before and after performing his studies, he offers respect to the lotus feet of Guru. And then how should he dress? He should dress in a tree bark or a deer's garment, and he should wear a sacred thread, collect alms morning and evening. And then interestingly, he says that he should eat only if the Guru calls him. In the earlier times, the Guru, he would call all the disciples to take prasad. And if by chance Guru forgets to take the name of one disciple, that person has to fast that day. Of course, after hearing all this, you may be thinking, if that is the case, then in Kali Yuga, Brahmachari ashram will be impossible. Nobody will be able to stay in Brahmachari ashram in following all these rules and regulations. So that is what, Srila Prabhupada has given a, very balanced way how staying in Kali Yuga, one can practice these principles of Brahmacharya. And then he describes how a Brahmachari should conduct and deal with the women. So he says, Shushilo mit bhukat daksha shraddhadhano jitendriyaha yavad artham vyavahreta strisho stri nirjiteshu cha. Sushila, he should be very well behaved. Mit bhuk, he should control his eating. Dakshaha, he should be very, very expert and industrious, Prabhupada writes there. And Shraddhadhana, Jitendriya. He should have full faith in the words of his guru, and he should be having all the control over his senses. Yavat, that is, now this is important for a brahmachari, how he should behave, how should he should interact. Yavad artham vyavaharet. He should interact with women only for the essential services. That is very important. And then what he should do? Vivarjayet pramadagatha agrihastho brihadvratah indriyani pramathini harantyapyatermune. He says Vivarjayet pramadagatha. So one who has not accepted the grihastha life, agrihastha means one who is not a grihastha, one who is following the principles of brahmacharya. What he should do? Varjayet pramadagatha. He should avoid talking with women. He should be brihad vrataha. He should follow the vows very strictly, because somebody may say, why it's such strict regulations? Because indriyani pramathini. Indriyas, they are very, very strong. The senses, they are very, very strong. Haranti api yater mune. They can agitate the mind of even a sannyasi. The same verse was spoken by Krishna also to Arjuna. Indriyani pramathini haranti prashabham manaha. O Arjuna, one should control all the senses. Even one of the senses should not allow to wander, because the senses are very, very strong. They can control, they can conquer even the intelligence of a learned person. So that's how, this association with opposite gender is very, very strict. And that is called Brihadvrata. Brihadvrata means a brahmachari who has decided not to marry and to observe the strict celibacy. And then, he says that a young brahmachari, sometimes, in earlier times, spiritual master, guru, he would be married also sometimes, and he would have wife. Generally, a guru is a very elderly person, and his wife is also elderly lady. So when a brahmachari would enter a brahmachari ashram, the guru patni, she would take care of the brahmachari like the mother. But Narad Muni says that, sometimes it so happens that, a guru has a very young wife also. So a young brahmachari should not allow the young wife of a guru to massage his body or comb or bathe, because that is a natural, feeling of affection of a mother. Mother likes to take care of the son by touching, caring for his hair, massaging him with oil, bathing him. So, but if the wife is young of a guru, then this should be completely avoided. And therefore, Prabhupada writes in the purport that there are 7 mothers: Atma Mata, Guru, Patni, Brahmani, Rajpatnika, Dhenu, Dhatri, Tatha Prithvi, Saptaita, Matrita, Smritaha. There are 7 women, 7 mothers of everyone in this world. Atma Mata, our biological mother from whom we took birth. Guru Patni, the wife of a guru, she's also mother. Brahmani, the wife of a brahmana, she's also mother. Rajpatnika, the queen, she's also mother. Then Dhenu means the cow. Earth, Dhatri. Dhatri means the nurse who takes care of the child. And Prithvi, earth. These are the 7 mothers. And therefore, Prabhupada writes in the purport that unrestricted association with even mother should be avoided. There is a verse which comes in Bhagavatam, Matra swasra duhitra va na viviktasano bhavet balwan indriya gramam vidvamsam apicha karshati. One should not stay in a secluded place even with the mother, daughter, and the sister. Balwan indriya gramam vidvamsam apicha karshati. Even great learned personality can also get bewildered. So Prabhupada writes, this is human civilization. One should not associate with women if it is not needed for any service. And a civilization that allows a unrestricted mixing with the sexes That is an animalistic civilization. So somebody may say, okay, why there is so much of precaution about association with women? So then Narad Muni says, Nanavagni pramadhanam ghritakumbha samappaman sutam apiraho jahyad anyada yavadarthakrit. He says that Nanavagni, certainly women is like fire. Agni pramadhanam, women is like fire. Ghritakumbha samappaman, and man is like a butter pot. So therefore, sutam apiraho jahyad. One should avoid associating with even his own daughter in a secluded place. One should not stay with even his own daughter. Anyada yavat arthakrit. One should associate with women only for important business. Even if one is not alone, even if somebody is with so many people, one should not associate with women unnecessarily. This is all for the brahmachari life. One should associate with women only for services or important duties. As Kapiladev also describes he tells to his mother, Tat srishta srishta srishteshu kon akhandita dhipuman rishim narayan rite yoshi mayeh maya. There is nobody in the entire creation who can resist the temptations of a woman. Apart from Nar Narayan Rishi, nobody can do it. So therefore better stay away from association with women, whoever they may be. And then he says that as long as one is not self-realized, as long as he is not free from the bodily conception of life, one should be very, very careful. So after one is free from the bodily conception of life, he does not have any fear. And we've seen the life of Prabhupada and so many disciples of Prabhupada, because they are so very pure, free from bodily conception of life. They have to take care of so many of the disciples, female disciples. Prabhupada was arranging the marriage for the disciples. He was taking care of all the female disciples just like the father. So that's how, if somebody is not a pure devotee, one should be very, very careful, because the intelligence may get bewildered. And we see the example of Shukdev Goswami. When he came out of the womb of mother, he immediately walked off. And there were few naked ladies who were taking bath in the river. And Shukdev Goswami was a 16 years old man, very young. And these were young, naked, beautiful ladies. They were taking bath. Shukdev Goswami was looking everywhere. But these ladies, they did not even care to cover themselves. And after some time, when Vyasadev, he passed by searching for Shukdev Goswami, they immediately started covering themselves. So Vyasadev asked, what is this? My son, he went by, he was of same age as you, and you did not do anything, and I am of the age of your grandfather, and seeing me, you are covering yourself. What is this happening? So the ladies, they reply that actually you are also a great liberated soul, but because you are a grihastha, you have to see the distinction. You have to discriminate between man and women. But your son, he is a Paramhamsa. So he does not have any discrimination between a man and women. Drishtvanuyantam rishimatmajamapyanagnam devya riya paridadu natsutasya chitram tadvikshya prichati munau jagadustavaste stri pumbhida natu sutasya vivikta drishte. So the ladies, they are saying, Stri pumbhida na tu sutasya. Your son does not see discrimination between man and women. Vivikta drishte, he is completely detached. He has equal vision. So, Chakravarti Thakur writes that what fear does a person who has conquered his senses and has given up his relationship with wife, sons, he does not have any fear. Even if living in the family life, if somebody is controlled in his senses, he has no fear. Yo dustyajan dar sutan suridrajyam ridhisprisha juhav yuvaiva malvat uttama shloka lalasa. Just like Bharat Maharaj, he gave up everything. Privrat Maharaj, he was staying in the family, he was ruling the kingdom, but still he was not attached to it. That is the glory of a devotee of the Lord. And then he describes about the brahmachari's ashram in further details. And Narad Muni says that these principles which are described in 6 to 10 verses, they are applicable to grihasthas also, sannyasis also, and vanaprastha also. Same principles are applicable for all the ashramas. Only one exception is there for grihastha ashram. By the permission of their guru, they are allowed to procreate. They are allowed to have sex for procreation. And then he says that there are some items which are forbidden for even a celibate grihastha. All these are very high standards, Vedic standards. So he says that one should not apply ointments, one should not massage the hair with the oil, or one should not massage the body with the oil, one should not see women, one should not eat meat or drink wine. And then he says that one should live in the Gurukul. A brahmachari should live in the Gurukul and learn the spiritual education, learn from the teachers, because these Vedas, they are meant to give intelligence so that we can understand the spiritual knowledge. And then Prabhupada writes there in the purport that there are so many educational training societies are there now, but all this knowledge has nothing to do with absolute truth. So Prabhupada would say many times, technology of this current age is meant for Shudra. Vedas, they are meant for Brahmanas. So all this engineering and craftsmanship and everything you have in this world, they are, according to Prabhupada, they are like a Shudra business. Nothing to do with spiritual life. And knowledge which has nothing to do with spiritual life is a Shudra knowledge. So that is what Narad Muni is telling. And then Narad Muni tells that one should realize the omnipotence of the Supreme Lord by following all the scriptures. And the result of doing all this is one will attain the supreme absolute truth at the end of this life. Any of the ashram one may be, he'll attain the perfection. And then he describes the duties of a vanaprastha in the next few verses from 17 to 23 verses. He describes if somebody follows the principles of vanaprastha, he may actually go to Maharloka also. And then in the last section from 24 to 31st verses, he describes how a vanaprastha, he gives up his body, how he merges the elements of his body in the successive elements, how he merges the bodily wholes in the sky and then breathing into the air, heat into the fire, and in this way he attains the perfection. Only the soul remains. So that is the description of the 4 varna and 4 ashrama. Then in the 13th chapter, he describes the qualities of a sannyasi. So qualities of sannyasi were remaining. So he describes that a sannyasi should be completely detached. He should merely eat for his subsistence. He should be independent of anything material. He should not have any material desires. He should keep traveling on the earth. He should not stay at one place. He should stay at different places every day, just like Shad Goswamis. They would stay under every tree, different tree every night. So that is the understanding of a sannyasi also. Sometimes he wears cloth, sometimes he even does not wear that. If he wears only a loin cloth and an outer covering. He should wander where alone, he should beg alms, and these are the various qualities of the sannyasi which are described. What is the consciousness of a sannyasi? The consciousness of a sannyasi is he should see the Supreme Lord everywhere. That is a uttama adhikari. Sarva bhuteshu yah pashyed bhagavad bhavam atmanah yena bhutani asheshani drakshasi atmani athomai. That is described in the 11th chapter, 11th canto also. He sees super soul in every living entity, and he sees all the living entities with equal vision. And then he realizes that the time is supremely powerful, and therefore he is not engaged in anything material. He just focuses on cultivating the spiritual knowledge. And then he says, there are some more qualities of sannyasi. What are the other qualities of sannyasi? Nasat shastresu sajjeta, nopajivet jivikam, vadam tejet tarkan, paksham kancha na samshrayet. So he says that, sannyasi should not engage in learning so many scriptures. He should not engage in reading so many of the books. They should be rejected. One should not just be engaged in cultivating the knowledge which is not related to spiritual life. And no upajivet jivika. He should not become a professional teacher. So a sannyasi should not become a guru just to earn money. So Prabhupada writes, in current scenario, you see there are so many of the gurus who claim that you come here, you give some donation and we'll give you diksha and you can practice this, you'll also become guru. That is not the purpose of a sannyasi. Sannyasi should not engage in any mundane, illogical arguments. One should not be interested in any ordinary literature. And for that matter, this is applicable for everyone, even a sadhaka. The prajalpa is a very, very dangerous impediment in the life of a sadhaka. And prajalpa in the form of a newspaper and all the news which is going on, Bhagavatam describes tadvag visargo janatag viplavo, and before that verse it is described nayadvachas chitra padam hareryasho jagat pavitram pragranit karhichit tadvaya samtirthamushanti manasa na yatra hamsa niramantyu sikshayah. The words which do not describe the glories of Lord Krishna, they are the place of pilgrimage for the crows. Just like the crows, they just relish the garbage. If there is a garbage, you will find all the crows. In Mumbai, we can see this scene, very often. Nayatra Hamsa, the swans will never come to the place where garbage is there. So all the mundane knowledge, mundane news, they are like garbage. So Radha Govind Maharaj, he would say about news. One of the famous news channels, their tagline is "ये है खबर आज तक इंतजार करिए कल तक." So he would say "ये है कचरा आज तक इंतजार करिए कल तक और कचरा सुनने के लिए." So that is how the world people are so very absorbed in accumulating the garbage. And if one day they cannot hear the garbage, they think something is missing in life. And they will spend hours and hours discussing about all the garbage which is happening in the world, which they have nothing to do with. Nothing is going to change in the life of a sadhaka if he hears every day 1 hour news. By seeing all the statistics of COVID, life is not going to change. By studying whatever is happening in the life of all the Bollywood actors and how they are killed or murdered or what happened, or nothing is going to change in the life of a sadhaka. Ayur harti vaipumsa mudyamastanchayannasau tasyarte ashanau nita uttama shloka vartaya. With every rising and setting of the sun, the life of a person is decreasing. So therefore, we cannot afford to waste time. We have very short time with us. We have n number of responsibilities. We have n number of projects to do in life. The project of our Krishna consciousness is itself the biggest project, and we don't have sufficient time also. So why we are affording to waste time in those things which we cannot do anything about? And the result is that material vibration is so very strong, so very powerful, that it captures all our consciousness. So better, sometimes even devotees, they think, if I'll not hear all this, what people will say, "Are, itna bhi nahi malum, he is such a ignorant person, दुनियादारी कुछ पता ही नहीं है इसको." Better to be known as a foolish person amongst the materialists. We should not be concerned about getting recognition from people of the outside world, because they will never give recognition. They are just interested in making fun. So therefore, we should never be troubled. As Prabhupada would tell the story, at one time in a fish market, somebody was selling fish, and he had put a board, fresh fishes sold here. So one person came and said, we know these fishes are fresh. So what is the need of writing fresh fishes? Oh, he removed that fresh. Another person came and said, and fishes sold here? We know you are sitting in the fish market, you will sell fish only. What is the need of writing fishes sold here? Removed fish also. Third person came, sold here. He said, you are sitting in the market, and nobody sits in the market for buying. He is there for selling also only. Sold is also removed. Here. Fourth person came, if everybody knows you are here only, what is the use of writing? The board was empty. Fifth person came and said, hey, board is there empty, write something. That is a condition. Whatever you do in this world, people will say something. We should not be under the impression of getting endorsement from the material civilization. We should be concerned about perfecting our life, not wasting our time. And then, Narad Muni describes that a disciple, and then the sannyasi, he should not give allurements to his disciples to make more and more, attract more and more disciples. He should not give allurement. One should not read too many books. One should not, teach as a means of livelihood. One should not attempt to build temples. And Prabhupada clarifies there that first business of a sannyasi is to preach. And in course of preaching, if he gets resources, if he gets money, then he can, build temples so that devotees, students who are interested in practicing this Krishna consciousness, they can come and they can take shelter of this place. So Prabhupada writes there, the temples and monasteries should be constructed for the preaching of Krishna consciousness. That's why Prabhupada would call temples as spiritual universities. Otherwise, if somebody is staying in the temple, Prabhupada is writing there, one should not stay in temple as a free hotel facility. Saraswati Thakur, he would call such people who are staying in matha, but not very serious in the spiritual practice. He would call them mat medhi. Just like Grave Medhi is there, he would call them mat medhi. One time a reporter came to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, why you are building big temples? Prabhupada, he said, I can sit under a tree and give a class. Will you come? We are building big temples so that people may come and take advantage of it, because people, they are attracted by the grandeur. They like to see something grand and very beautiful. That's why we are building big temples. Otherwise, we are not interested. So that's what he would say. One other person came to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, there are so many abandoned temples in India. Why you are building new temples? Just adopt something. So this person was with his wife. And Prabhupada asked, so is she your wife? He said, yes. So Prabhupada asked, why did you marry her? So this person was confused. Kya relation hai, with temple and wife? He was not able to speak anything. Prabhupada said, because you wanted a son. That's why you married. Why do you want a son? There are many orphans. Just adopt any of them. This person said, Swamiji, I want my son. Prabhupada said, similarly, I want my son. I want my temple. Because I can do whatever I want in my temple. I can instruct, I can make all the rules. So that is the purpose of a sannyasi. And then he says, a Paramhamsa or spiritually advanced person, he should be very peaceful, he should be equipoised, and he may or may not accept the symbols of sannyas, just like a sannyas danda or kamandalu. And then he says, the person, the sannyasi, he may be a greatest orator, he may be a greatest poet, but he should not, show his powers and the qualities and all this wonderful uh, this expertise he has if it is not needed to spread this message of Krishna consciousness. And then after this, Narad Muni gives an example of a saintly person who was not showing his skills and the qualities. And he describes a conversation which happened between Avadhut Brahmana and Prahlad. So Prahlad, he was once roaming all over the universe. He was touring the universe with some of his confidential associates to learn from the nature, to learn the nature of saintly persons. So he was traveling. That time he arrived at the bank of Kaveri on the and on the bank of Kaveri there was a mountain called Sahya. He found a very great saintly person. He was lying on the ground, and as you can see in this picture, he was lying on the ground covered with dirt, but he was looking very deeply spiritually advanced. People could not understand why this person was behaving in this way. He was looking as a very advanced person, but people, they could not understand that why this person externally is looking a very advanced personality, but why is he behaving in such a weird way? So that is the nature of a devotee. Vaishnavera kriya mudra vigyena bujhai. One should never judge a devotee based on the externals. One may be doing some weird activities, but we should never judge a person based on the externals, especially a Vaishnava. Prahlad, because he was such an advanced devotee, he worshipped the Supreme Lord every day. Therefore, he understood that this person is really advanced personality. He offered respects to this saintly personality. He touched his head to the feet of this personality, and very humbly he inquired from the spirit, this person. So, Prahlad, because he had studied all the scriptures and he had met all the great devotees, great saintly people. So he could understand that this person is a very advanced personality. So naturally he was inquisitive. So he started speaking to this personality. He said, "Oh saintly person, you do not work for your livelihood, but you have a very strong, stout body. Generally, a person who does not work, he has a thin body, but you have a very stout body like a materialistic enjoyer. You have no money for sense enjoyment, but still your body is so fat. How is this possible? You appear like learned and intelligent person, but and a learned person does not lie down inactive. But you are lying down in such a inactive way, and all the other people, you are looking at their actions with disgust. So I'm not able to understand this." So Chakravarti Thakur writes that you cannot say that your body has become fat simply by nature, because those who endeavor, they become wealthy. Those who become wealthy, they enjoy. Those who enjoy, they become fat. And one becomes fat by endeavor, not naturally. Nobody becomes fat naturally. One has to endeavor to become fat. If just somebody is sitting, he does not become fat. If he does not eat properly, he cannot become fat. So therefore, this person may ask, this saintly person may ask, but why are you concluding like this? Why are you asking me all this? So Prahlad Maharaj says, I want to hear from your lotus mouth. I want to hear the nectar words from your mouth. Please speak something, because that is the perfection of my life. I want to make myself successful. That's the humility of Prahlad. Prahlad, who is Prahlad? Prahlad is the greatest of the devotee. Supreme Lord Nrsimha has himself endorsed, "Oh Prahlad, you are my best devotee. You have no material desires." And humbly, Prahlad is asking this person that, "Please tell me, I want to make myself successful." And then when this saintly person, he heard very sweet words from Prahlad, he was very captivated and he started speaking. He said, "O greatest of the demons, you are respected by foremost of the Brahmanas. You are aware of all the different stages, different orders of life. You know everything. You are expert. And I know why you are asking me all these questions. Because you are very expert in devotion. Bhaktya kevalaya. Because of your devotion, Supreme Lord is always prominent in your heart. That's why you are asking me all these questions. Because Supreme Lord drives away all the ignorance in the heart of a devotee. Yasya Narayano Devo Bhagavan Ridigata Sada Bhaktya Kevalaya Jnanam Dhunoti Dhvantam Arkavat. Just like the sun dissipates all the darkness, Supreme Lord himself destroys all the ignorance. And then he says, although you know everything, I know. You know everything. But because you have asked some questions, I shall answer. Although I have taken a vow of silence, but still I'll answer your questions. And then he speaks something interesting. He says, I will answer according to whatever I have heard from authorities. I'll speak for my own purification. This theme is constant throughout Bhagavatam. When somebody is asked, please speak, first of all, he expresses his humble disposition. I am speaking whatever I have heard from authorities. Even Supreme Lord, if he is asked, he also quotes the conversation of the sages. That's the glory of Krishna. So that's a devotee. So Prabhupada writes, he focuses on this word yatha shrutam, whatever I have heard. That's the glory of parampara. Whatever we have heard, we should repeat. And then he says, for my own purification. Atma shuddhim ichchata. I want my own purification. So Prabhupada writes in one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the activities of Krishna consciousness should be done for one's own purification. They should not be done for personal aggrandizement. And then this Brahmana describes the futility of material happiness. He says, please hear why I have become detached from all the material activities. Because I have seen that in this world, the desires, they are the cause of transmigration. Because of the insatiable material desires, the trishna, the thirst for sense gratification is insatiable. Because of the desires, one is carried off by the material nature, and he is forced to take birth again and again. But when somebody comes in this human life is like a junction. We can decide our next destination in this human life, which is not possible in any other species of life. So therefore, material life, Prabhupada writes, that is like pa-varga. What is pa-varga? Pa-pha-ba-bha-ma. Nowadays, most of the people, they have forgotten ka-kha-ga-ga. You ask ABCD, everybody will remember ABCD. But you ask children, ka kha ga ga sunao, they will not remember. So what is this pa varga? Pa, pha, ba, bha and ma. So all these alphabets, they have a significance. This shows the life of a materialistic person. Pa varga. Parishram. Pa is parishram. A person is engaged in working so very hard, like an ass, working whole day. Because he's working like an ass, sometimes, some people must have seen in the village, when the bull works so very hard, or when the horse works so very hard, he foams at the mouth. That is fena. So when a person is working very hard, he is practically foaming at the mouth. Pa, fa. Then, because he has acquired so many things, next thing comes is bhaya. Next thing which comes is bandha. He becomes bound by the desires. He is thinking, oh, I have so many things. Idamadhyamaya labdham imam prapse manoratham idamastidam apime bhavishyati punardhanam. He thinks I have got so many things, I'll increase my bank balance in future, you know. And then because he has acquired so many things in life, next thing which comes is bhaya. Next thing which comes is fear of material life, fear of losing. He thinks I'll lose all these things, so he's very, very fearful. And in this consciousness, ultimately, ma is mrityu. So that's the power everybody is going through in this material world. And therefore, if somebody wants to attain apavarga vartmani, as it is said, apavarga vartmani, shraddha rati bhakti anukramshyati. If somebody wants apavarga, liberation, then one has to practice this path of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, if somebody does not take the advantage of human form, then again become a mouse. Punar mushik bhava. Prabhupada tells the story, Punar mushika bhava. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakritijan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. Because of the desire to enjoy in this world, living entity, they suffer in this material world. And then he says, I have seen the material life. I have abandoned all these material acts because I know. Tatrapi dampattinam cha sukhayanyaanupattaye karmani kurvatam drishtva nivritto asmi viparyayam. There are men and women who unite by marriage. Why do they unite by marriage? For sukha, for sense pleasure. But by my actual factual experience, I have seen that none of them are happy. When man and women, they come together in this world for sense enjoyment, they can never be happy. The basis of a household life should not be sense gratification. Yanmaithunadi grihamedhi sukham hitucham kandu yanena karayoriva dukkha dukkham. Family life is not meant for enjoyment. A husband should assist the wife in cultivating Krishna consciousness, and wife should also do the needful, do the same. Then it is a spiritual world, grihete goloka bhai. Otherwise, this life, one will become more and more entangled in the material life. Therefore, it says, Nivritto asmi, I have given up all these. Because I have seen Sukhamasyaatmano Rupam Sarveho Paradashtano Mana Samsparshajan Drishtva Bhogan Swapsyami Samvishan. He says, I have seen, actually a living entity is supposed to experience complete spiritual happiness. But this happiness will be experienced only when one stops all the materialistic activities. Sarva upaharati tanu. When one stops all the material activities, then he'll get the perfection of happiness. All the happiness which one gets in this material world, actually it is all coming from the mind. Mana samsparshaja. It is all imagination. All happiness which one experiences in this world is imagination. Therefore, I have seen all this, I have given up all this. As Prahlad Maharaj says, in this world, people are running after illusory happiness. Somebody is running after a mirage of happiness. A very little pleasure, lots of pain. So therefore, living entity, because they are forgetfulness of their actual identity, therefore they are suffering. They are suffering in this material world. Bhuliya tumhare samsara asiya pe nana vidvyatha. And therefore, all this search for happiness which living entities are doing in this world, they are futile. Just as a deer, he cannot see a water within the well. Water is there, right there in the well. But he'll run everywhere. He'll run after mirage. Similarly, happiness is there within every one of us. If we connect to the Supreme Lord, by this process of Krishna consciousness, by sincerely chanting and hearing the names of Lord, then the happiness is there. We don't have to run anywhere. So Prabhupada writes, this is an accurate example depicting how a living entity, because of lack of knowledge, he runs after happiness that is within his own self. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoe Shavanadi Shuddha Chitte. The happiness is there in the heart. We have to just revive it back. Because Krishna is Akhila Rasamrit Murti. He is the reservoir of all the rasa. Everybody in this world is hankering after rasa. Taste, ras chahiye jeevan mein. Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Devotion, everybody is hankering after rasa. But nobody is satisfied. Because none of the things of this world can satisfy. Only Krishna, who is Akhil Rasamrit Murti, can satisfy. Only Bhagavatam can satisfy. Nigam Galpa Taror Galitam Phalam Sukmukad Amrit Dravya Samyutam Pibat Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavka. When we immerse ourselves in this hearing and chanting, then we can be satisfied. So if somebody wants to quench his thirst, one must taste the association of Krishna. Darshanno didrikshunam dehi bhagavatarchitam rupam priyatamam swanam sarvendriya gunanjanam. Only Krishna can satisfy all the senses. So then he says that people in this world, they are having so many plans to enjoy, but ultimately they are baffled because they are not serving Krishna. Even if someone achieves success in this world, name, fame, prestige, adoration, distinction, money, wine, women, everything is there. What is the use of all this? Everything will be destroyed with death. Birth, old age, disease, and death are there. The miseries are there. So why to endeavor for all these temporary pleasures? So Prabhupada writes in the purport there, I have seen a dying man begging a medical practitioner to increase his life by 4 years so that he could complete his material desires. And of course, the medical person, he could not do anything about it. A rich man is so very insecure. He is victim of his own senses. He is so very greedy. He has so many things to take care of that he sometimes suffers from insomnia. Because he is very fearful that his money, his hard-earned money, will be taken away by the government laws, by the thieves or by the enemies, by family members, by animals or the beggars or the time factor. He's so very fearful. One businessman came to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, I have one company in this city, other company in this city. I have so many companies and I have to manage them. I am so very disturbed. I cannot sleep at night. Prabhupada told him, you give them all to us. We will take care of your business. You go and take rest properly. This person became disturbed. He became fearful. He said, Swamiji, I'm doing something. I'll come next time. Prabhupada said, no, please give your address. We should be also able to come to you. So that's how people are so very attached to this material wealth. And therefore he says the intelligent man should give up the desire for prestige and money. Shoka, moha, bhaya, krodha, raga, klebya, shramadayah, yanmulasyu niram jahiyat spriham pranarthayo buddha. One should give up the cause of lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, attachment, poverty, and labor. What is that? What is the cause? Desire for prestige and money. Because of these two things, one suffers a lot. And Prabhupada in the purport, he describes the futility of the material modern civilization. And he warns us not to over endeavor for mundane material things. He quotes this atyahar, prayasa, prajalpa, niyamagraha. So Prahlad, when he hears all this, he may ask, which guru has taught you all this? Then he says, I have two gurus in my life. I have learned from bee and I have learned from a python. Very interesting gurus, this person has. He says, then these are the two most excellent gurus which I have in my life. And I have learned satisfaction and renunciation from bee and python. So how we have learned satisfaction? He says actually bee teaches me detachment from material desires. How is that? Such bee is working so very hard, maintaining beehive, collecting honey from all the flowers and accumulating, doing so many things. And the person comes, he you know cuts off the beehive, takes all the honey away. Honeybee is completely detached. I've learned satisfaction from python. Python, he does not desire to possess anything. He is satisfied with whatever is achieved, automatically. Yadrichaya. He does not endeavor much. If some animal comes nearby, he eats it. Otherwise, he is happy, satisfied. So therefore, if I do not get anything, I am unagitated like python. And then he says, I eat whatever is easily available. Sometimes I eat small quantity, sometimes I eat great quantity. Sometimes palatable food is given to me, sometimes stale food is given to me. Sometimes people, they offer me food with all the respect. Sometimes they give me neglectfully. Sometimes I get to eat during the day, sometimes during the night, but I am not disturbed. I wear whatever comes. Sometimes I wear a linen or a silk or a cotton or tree bark or deer skin. I sleep anywhere. Sometimes I sleep on earth, sometimes on leaves, sometimes on grass, sometimes on stone, sometimes on the pile of ashes, sometimes in a palace. So Chakravarti Thakur writes that, this Avadhut Brahmana is describing the different lives. Different lives. Animal lies on the ground. A king lies in the palace. So that is what he's saying. Then he says, I travel. I bathe very nicely. I decorate myself with sandalwood. I wear fine garments and garland is offered, ornaments. I travel like king everywhere on a chariot or a horse. Sometimes I travel naked like a madman. I am not disturbed by any of this. And then he says, I avoid any of the false discrimination. Naham ninde nachastomi swabhava vishamam janam etesham shreyase ashase utaikamyam mahatmani. He says, I do not praise, I do not criticize people. All these people, they are coming from different mentalities. I do not criticize them, I do not praise them. On the contrary, I only desire their welfare, hoping that someday they will agree to follow the principles of Supreme Lord. So therefore, this Avadhut Brahmana is saying good and bad things are just the names. If somebody does good activity, he gets to, go to higher planetary systems. If somebody does a bad activity, he is degraded to lower planetary systems. A spiritualist is not disturbed by any of these things. He is focused on the ultimate goal of life. And then he describes how he fights the false discrimination and how he has become free from all the material affliction. And there, after describing all this, he says, therefore, I have described my history of self-realization to you, O Prahlad, because you are a self-realized soul. You are a devotee. You do not care for public opinion. So, and Prahlad, when he heard all this wonderful narration from this Paramhamsa Avadhut Brahmana, he offered respects to this saint and he departed with his permission. So that is the end of the 13th chapter. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So if anyone has any questions, you can please ask. So tomorrow we'll be completing the second canto, also 7th canto. Yeah, I've already unmuted you. You all can speak if you have any questions. You can unmute yourself and speak if you have any questions. Yeah, please, you can unmute yourself now.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, I want to ask about the what is the exactly meaning of the striyas told in this chapter, because um, Krishna says that striya vaishya tatha kshudras tepi anti paramgati. That means they are not included in the chaturvarna, I suppose.
See, they are there in the Chaturvarnyam. Kshatriya ladies there, Brahmana ladies there, Vaishya ladies there, Shudra ladies there. They are also there in the Varnashram only. We hear the story of Yayati and Devayani. Devayani was a Brahmini. Sharmishta was a Kshatriya lady. So they are also there in Varnashram. And the specific description about which is given about women is just by serving a devoted husband in a very very faithful way, and they themselves they are following the principles of varnashram, they also become liberated. That's why Kunti Maharani, she says, when she says tatha paramahamsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanartham katham pashyam hi striya. She is saying, how can I understand? I am a woman. That is her humility. Actually, the prayers which Kunti Maharani has spoken, they are so very profound prayers that even great sannyasis, great sages, great scholars, they are learning from these prayers. So that is the humility of the uh, devotee of the Lord. One time, Malti Mataji, she went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, devotees, they are saying that women have less brain and that's why they are unintelligent. So Prabhupada said, when one becomes a devotee, then there is no difference. Because ultimately it is question of bodily consciousness. The bodily, so the scriptures, when they talk about women being lower or unintelligent, they are talking about bodily consciousness. They're not talking about the mundane material intelligence. In fact, we see on the contrary, in all the educational fields, even women actually excel all the exams. So that is not talking about the material intelligence, that is talking about the uh, material conception of life.
Yes,
And
Prabhuji, but specifically in Varnashram, if the husband is Brahman, then she is considered as Brahman, right?
no, if she's born in a Brahmana family, then she's a Brahmana. And generally, a Brahmani is married to a Brahmana lady is married to a Brahmana. So that is also based on the qualification, the birth. You know. So generally, it was like that. A Brahmana would marry a Brahmani. So that is there. Brahmani, the women are also there included in the Varna and Ashram. Like that.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. We'll stop here. Shla Prabhupada ki jai.